What's going on, people? This is Balaji, and welcome to the Demand Wars. This gentleman sitting right next to me is the VP of Marketing at Slice. He's done it all from B2C to B2B. International markets, yep. Long term thinker, all day. He loves to work with data, but says data led is misleading. Please help me welcome the host of Ethics in Marketing, Mikhail Myzgin. Welcome, Mikhail.
What an introduction. I would like to thanks for having me.
It is a great delight to have you here. You've been doing some incredible things with the Slice brand over the past several years. And I think very recently, as us B2B marketers have started learning about this concept of building like a media company, I think you are one of those marketers who is actually leading the charge on making it happen. So I'm very excited to have you competing on the demand wars today. Mikhail, before we get started, I want to ask a little bit about the podcast that you kicked off recently, Ethics in Marketing. Are you trying to say us marketers are unethical? What's really going on here, Mikhail?
It's kind of like, it feels like a lot of the stuff in marketing unethical by default because we try to persuade people or, that's what we do. But the boundary between persuasion and manipulation is not very clear. And sometimes we kind of slip into manipulation and we think about things like achieving goals, and we don't often think like how are we doing this, what tools we use, what techniques we use, because we always look for getting the results, but by what means. We don't stop, we don't analyze, we don't reflect on it. And so the podcast about reflecting on those techniques, like, trying to understand what we're doing. Are we hurting people? Are we deceiving people? Are we manipulating people? So it's not fun. It's not all about the results, right? It's about just trying to be a better marketing from ethical point of view, not from the results point of view.
Mikhail, I feel like your show is very timely because if we look at the broader landscape for marketers in B2B specifically, we're maybe at the tail end of this growth by any means period, where there was a lot of venture capital investment being pumped into startups in particular, and these companies felt they had to grow really quickly. So sometimes we marketers were put, or even now are put, in positions where maybe we don't believe in the marketing tactics we're being asked to practice. And yet, if we don't practice them, we might not hit our goals and we might not keep our job.
Yeah, exactly. So there are a lot of very intricate issues here that lies in the realm of responsibility. And sometimes we need to do things. Maybe we don't personally believe them to be morally correct, but we act as a part of an organization. And if we are required to do certain things, we could say like, all right, I'm doing this, but I'm doing this because it's my job. But that's not really, if I would personally not do that, but still here I'm committing that act as an individual, but I'm kind of taking some of the responsibility off myself by creating a second identity as a part of an organization, right? It's not my responsibility. I'm just a cog in this machine doing things. So there are a lot of issues, not only related to like what we do, but how we think about this in terms of, do I think about a certain action, a certain act as my personal responsibility, or am I just acting as a part of an organization, and
Mm.
that doesn't really overlap with my internal integrity, with my moral self-image. So
Hmm.
lots of different um, angles here.
Wow. Wow. Mikhail, several years ago, I learned about this scientific experiment that happened in the 1960s. It's called the Milgram experiment. There's a psychologist, Stanley Milgram, and he ran these experiments where he had maybe two subjects. One was in a room, and then another one was maybe behind a one-way mirror. And the person in the room had to perform certain actions. Stanley Milgram would then instruct the one behind the mirror to occasionally um, press a button that would deliver an electrical shock to that person in the room. And he was trying to see how obedient the individual with the button would be when receiving orders from someone in authority. And unfortunately, he found that people are pretty obedient. People are willing to deliver pretty high levels of electric shocks to, you could see us marketers as the person with the button, and maybe our
Exactly.
poor, our audience, our prospective buyers. We keep delivering these electric shocks to them. Why do you think we're so willing to do that? Whether it's spam, delivering spam emails or cold calls, or being deceptive in our marketing.
Well, people don't think about themselves as bad, right? And people generally want to maintain a positive kind of like self-image, like don't no, nobody wants to think they're a bad person. So people justify whatever they do in very different ways, in many different ways. So it's people do this, but they don't think about this in a way that would make themselves think about themselves as bad people. And that allows them to do that.
Hmm.
They would justify it in many different ways, like it's just my job, and then you push the button. Well, if it's not me, somebody else would do that, and then you push the button. Or there's a very common one. I need to feed my family, and you push that button. Relevant because we don't see those people. Like in
True.
this experiment, you could see this person were given
Mm-hmm.
electrical shock to, and that could really change the stuff. But in digital marketing, if we like design an interface, website, or message, and the workflow may be trying to make people do something they wouldn't do otherwise, or they don't realize that what they do, like a subscription charges you without you realizing it.
Yes.
And we think about this as a certain kind of like a challenge, a professional challenge, an interesting puzzle to solve, but we don't realize that we are hurting real people because you don't see them. You're just, walking using some nice software tools, and you do cool stuff with, whatever tools we have. But you don't really see those people.
Right.
And what I think is that most marketers would struggle uh, to apply the same tactics they use in digital marketing if they would have to do them in real life, face to face. They would struggle morally. They say, I'm not that kind of person to do that. But when we do it in some interfaces, we don't see the human on the other side. That
Mm-hmm.
changes things. So people are more relaxed in this environment. And so that also allows them to do ethically problematic things without really thinking about themselves as bad people, let's say.
Yeah, I don't know why this isn't discussed more, but I'm really happy that you are having these conversations on your show. So I encourage our fellow marketers to definitely tune into ethics in marketing. Thank you for sharing your perspectives on that, Mikhail. We'd like to jump now into the very first question of demand war. So, for the first question, Mikhail, we're putting you on a desert island. You are a desert island marketer. You have $1,000 a month in budget. You have internet, you have a laptop, that's all you get. You have to help take a B2B company to market. With that very limited budget, how would you spend that $1,000 a month?
Yeah, so first, I would definitely spend that money trying to get some interviews with the audience. Sometimes there should be some sort of um, incentive for people to talk to you. So, uh, you know, talking to customers as a research requires some budget, but that's a solid starting point that would allow
Hmm.
you to spend the rest of the money and the next month budget and the next month budget more wisely. So I would
Mm.
put that first as a foundation for all the next actions. And based on that uh, qualitative data that I would receive on that research, I would plan out an ad campaign. Maybe, maybe it will be on budget, right? Very, very low budget. But because assuming we know what the audience is, but we also have some data from that research, or would be able to outperform competition, right? Not competition in terms of like uh, what these people read, what these people pay attention to from our audience. We would be able to really catch their attention.
Hmm.
So I'd say, the budget is tight, but really, if you get that qualitative aspect right in the first place, it would allow you to survive on a very small budget later.
Very interesting. Not a lot of people have started there, actually looking to spend money on that customer research. Let me dig into that a little bit more, Mikhail. So, what kinds of questions have you tended to? I'm assuming this is stuff that an approach you've done with Slice, because I know you have a lot of customer engagement on your LinkedIn company page. What kind of questions are you actually asking to understand what they pay attention to and what their problems are?
Now, I don't have questions that I ask all the time, but there are things I try to figure out. So one of the most important things I try to understand is uh, what the product that I have to market. How important is this product for my audience in terms of everything they have to deal with on a daily basis? Could be a million of things, right? And my product could take a big share of their attention. It could take a small portion of their attention. Could be a very tiny, tiny fraction of their attention, and that could make a very big difference in terms of what are you going to do next. If your product really takes a big share of the attention of your audience, then you can pretty much safely build your strategy around the content related to your product, to the problem your product solves. Like you could think about things like CRM. Usually people who deal with CRM, it's a very, very important part of the day-to-day job. So it's oftentimes a central piece of what they do. But more often than not, the product that we market really takes a tiny fraction of attention of our audience. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Like, is it really that important from their perspective, or is it just something they need to solve? But then there is like a thousand of other items we're competing with from their perspective, right? So when you
Hmm.
look from the perspective of your own product, because on the marketing side, where usually marketers uh, really focused on their own product, they see it as the center of the universe.
Yeah,
But this
right.
is far, far from the reality for your audience, and you need to understand okay, like if you see like the daily life at work for your audience, where how far from the center of the attention your product and the problem your product solves is it very far away? Is it just something really insignificant?
Mm.
And so based on that, that was the case with Slice, right? So it was not
Mm.
very significant, and
Wow.
that's why I chose the approach of really trying to catch the attention with something that has more significance to them, and then
Mm.
just supplementary uh, try to show our product.
That fascinates me, Mikhail, and let me explain why. As you are, I love you're trying to figure this out. How important is my product? A lot of us marketers, by the way, I've heard this framed before as, are we selling vitamins or painkillers? If you're selling vitamins, okay, they're good for you. You take them every day. But if you miss a few days, it's not a big deal. If you're selling painkillers, hey, listen, if I have a headache, I need a solution right now. I maybe don't even care what brand it is. I just need a solution. And so, but a lot of us marketers, maybe even our brands, we might be selling vitamins, but we convince ourselves that we're selling painkillers. You took a totally different view. So when you said about Slice, yeah, it seems like Slice was not taking up a lot of their attention in their daily lives, the problem Slice solves. That was a shock to me. How did you then create content that still ends up helping you to sell products?
So the content is about other things that our audience cares about, and mostly like things they care about on a daily basis. And so the content is about how to do their job more efficiently. Well, specifically, uh, so we talk about uh, human skills, people skills that they would need to apply it in their daily job. And we have a podcast where we invite experts from our audience that discuss this topic, and because that's something they really care about, and that's something they need to use daily, they do use daily, they want to learn more about this, they watch the show, right? So
Hmm.
that's the whole point.
Hmm.
It's something they really interested in. um, and the way I learned about this, so I I was trying to understand what are the discussions are about. So you can pretty easily find a community of your audience somewhere on the internet. It could be LinkedIn, but there are forums, there are
Hmm.
places, right? So you see
Hmm.
what people are talking about, and you see sometimes you could find topics that um, get a lot of attention, but you don't see a lot of systematic coverage of that certain angle anywhere. And that's kind of where I took the idea. Then on the same research interviews, I was asking people, hey, what do you think about this topic? They say, yeah, it's of huge importance, they would say me. And that led us to experimented with content around this topic, which we turned into a podcast. And yeah, that's how we got where we are.
But I mean, it's not a complicated approach. You're
No,
identifying your ideal customers. You're asking them what's important to them, and then you're giving that to them.
yeah, it's
Maybe,
very simple.
yeah, maybe more of us marketers should actually do that. Okay, this is great, Mikhail. So you've helped us to figure out how to do marketing on a really small budget. The next question, though, is almost going to be the opposite. So money is not an option. All right, you work for Elon Musk at this point. Don't spit out your water.
Oh my God.
And you've been asked to create demand fast. a lot of us marketers, maybe at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter, find ourselves in this situation. So I'd love for you, Mikhail, to, I'm going to ask you this question three different ways. So Elon Musk is asking you to create demand first in 3 days. That's the Tasmanian Devil special. Then in 3 weeks, that's the Roadrunner special. And then in 3 months, more of a nice Power Walker special. So let's tackle the first one. You've been asked to create demand. You only have 3 days. How in the world do you pull it off?
Well, probably impossible, right? Find an influencer
Mhm.
in that industry that you're trying to you're targeting. There are always
Mhm.
influencers.
Mhm.
Get a deal, pay big money. The influencer would talk about this, create FOMO. But I mean, 3 days.
It's almost an impossible challenge. And yet, sometimes us B2B marketers are presented with impossible challenges. The influencer topic is an interesting one because in B2C, maybe it's a bit easier for us to immediately envision influencers and what they look like. In a B2B space, like for Slice, where you're focused on safety, how would you actually look for and identify influencers?
Uh, no, I actually don't think it's that difficult because um, sometimes I see marketers that revolve in these, kind of like live in the marketing bubble. If you go outside that bubble and you go to try to find where like accountants discuss things, you would always find somebody where people who people listen to, and any audience. If you find those places where these people hang out, there will be always certain individuals that you can identify them, that hey, these are the individuals that other people listen to more,
Mm.
by just kind of uh, surfing through those discussions in those
Mm-hmm.
communities, and it will be clear. So it's really not that difficult. You just need to find those places, uh, check this out, and yeah, it will be pretty clear.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And the research that you're discussing, whether it's done in search engines or you go to forums or Reddit, you can do this manually for sure. And then there are actually now some research tools. SparkToro, for example, by Rand Fishkin, is one that I think does some of what you're describing here.
I haven't used it, so can't comment. But I
Yeah,
know about
yeah,
the tool, of course.
yeah. It's a good one. I've had the opportunity to use it in the past. Okay, so I like this approach. We only gave you 3 days. You said come find the influencers, do a deal, create some FOMO. All right, let's give you a little bit more time. Let's say you actually have 3 weeks now. How are you actually going to create demand in 3 weeks?
I'd say pretty much the same, because the practical difference is mm, insignificant in the terms of demand creation. The difference is just several days. So I'd say maybe the same, but better. So maybe you could strike several deals. Maybe you could negotiate a little bit better. Um, but I think establishing an authority in a matter of weeks is not possible. So the use of somebody's authority, already existing authority, that is an influencer, can give you this way of trying to do something in a very short time. So
Gotcha.
pretty much the
Gotcha.
same.
That makes sense. That makes sense. If you now have, Mikhail, 3 months, you have a quarter, essentially. Are there any additional things that you might be able to do at that point?
Yeah, an additional thing could be, so because we kind of operate with FOMO in this sense, because because this time is short. So we rely on FOMO. One thing that can increase FOMO is actually reaching your audience through multiple channels. So 3 months is a comfortable time to try to reach your audience through multiple channels. So what happens when you reach your audience through multiple channels? It really creates a perception of increased significance of your brand in the eyes of your audience, because they just don't just see you in the same usual place they do. Like, I go on LinkedIn and I see that brand, and I go on LinkedIn again, and it could get repetitive. So people could start dismissing, not noticing. It would kind of blend in with the environment of LinkedIn for them. But if they go to a very different place and they see the same, like, wow, I see this brand here, I see this brand there. So it kind of creates a perception of ubiquity of this brand, and that creates increases FOMO, because wow, I see it on LinkedIn, but then an influencer on, I don't know, Reddit, probably not a good example, but recommended it. So that's like that's something maybe I need to try, right? So a lot here depends on the product. So
Hmm.
things could change depending on what kind of product, what kind of business model we're talking about. So the
Mhm.
product could change everything here. But
Yeah.
it's
That's
very,
a good
very.
point. And Mikhail, as we flow to the next segment of Demand Wars, I'll be interested to hear how your product, considering it's a physical product, how
Mhm.
you found ways to incorporate it into your media content. So I'm glad that you mentioned the form of the product. All right. So Mikhail, here's the $1,000,000 question now. The concept of marketing like a media company. Everybody's seen it on LinkedIn. We're hearing people talk about it. Not that many B2B marketers are doing it. You've managed to pull it off. At least you've been doing it for the better part of a year at Slice. So, what could it look like if if a B2B brand markets like a media company?
Yeah, so it's not a matter of if, right, for me. So how I see it, and uh, I'm not claiming that I've done it. I say I'm in the process, and again, like, it's my understanding of this term, because there is no agreement on what that means. But we can, spend a lot of time discussing the terminology. But how I think about it is that you actually uh, create the content that is not about the product. The product, if you really talked about the product, it's just, you know, product marketing combined with content marketing. Uh, you really talk about things that are interesting for your audience.
Mm,
Basically, you create media. So
mhm,
media company is in the business of producing media. So you produce media. So and that media is about something that is of interest for your audience. So that's the core here, right? Now, uh, and another part here is that, okay, so you have this content, and people watch it, listen to it, read it. Doesn't matter like how they do it. Another key part is that you use that media to actually uh, promote your brand in the same sense that a media company sells uh, media space, ad space. Like if you want to advertise with a media company, let's say, I don't know, Reddit,
Right.
uh, basically what you do is you buy ad space. You know your audience is there. So you pay money to Reddit, and they allow you to put your ads in the ad space
Yep.
because your audience is there, and you know Reddit kind of owns the place. So when you have your own media, you basically do the same, right? So your
Hmm.
audience is consuming this media, and you just put your ad in there, except that you
Right.
don't pay for it because it's your own.
That's true.
And there are two aspects here. First is that there is no ad spend for you because you don't need to buy those ads because you own the media. So
Hmm.
it's good for budget. And another one is that um, with standard kind of ad buying experience, you buy ads, maybe, like right now it's crisis and we know like what's happening to marketing budgets in many companies. You have to decrease ad spend.
Hmm.
But in this case, because you kind of own the media, you don't need to do that, right? You can continuously show your products to your audience using your own media,
Hmm.
and you don't lose the audience because you don't have ad budget anymore. You don't lose it.
Right.
So that's a very attractive aspect of this media company because you get to keep the audience, right? The
Hmm.
audience is coming along with you, and you can continuously um, uh, show your product, your brand to your audience
Hmm.
because they are not here because of something else. They're here because of your content that you own and you produce, and yeah, you can continuously use it, and you do not depend on ad budget.
Hmm. Hmm. Very interesting. I've had the opportunity to follow the show that you've created for Slice, and you're developing it in really creative ways. You have a very engaged audience, which I enjoy seeing. I've seen you sometimes post questions to your audience, and there's lots of response, and then you're featuring your audience on the show itself. But I also love this idea of advertising your product within the show so that the content is not about the product, but you still let people know, the audience is aware of what solution you're selling.
Hmm. Right. So it's like imagine you have a community of marketers that hang out, and you need to market to marketers,
Hmm.
and you want to show them your product.
Hmm.
What you would pay to whoever runs the community. That's the same thing basically, except that you don't need to pay.
This is true. This is true. Got it. Got it. Okay, cool. All right, Mikhail, we got a couple more that we're going to get you through. Do you have a few more minutes for us to, if we can get through?
Yeah, definitely. I don't have a
Excellent.
hard stop, so.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, excellent. All right, Mikhail. So there's this concept. There was a movie that came out a few years ago here in the US called Get Out. And in it, there was basically the idea of a man who was trapped. He was trapped within the subconscious of somebody else. He called that place the sunken place. I think of marketers being stuck in this place sometimes where they've been doing demand capture for their company for quite a while, lead generation essentially, and they're trying to transition into actually creating demand. The problem is, as they start to ungate their content, the MQLs start to go way down. And this demand creation content that they're creating, it's very engaging for the audience, but that pipeline does not appear overnight. This is going to make the company, the VP of sales, the CEO very nervous. How do marketers survive that period? Maybe it's 3 months or 6 months where they've stopped doing those lead gen practices, but the pipeline from their demand creation has not yet caught up.
Well, don't stop. Don't stop. Continue doing the lead gen. Don't ungate content. And start building demand gen in parallel. So I imagine that most of the standard marketing approaches, they've been around for almost a decade. So almost all companies have established processes, and it's almost like self-sufficient system, right? You don't really need really to do much. All right, so there's an ad campaign with like a gated ebook. Oh, hey, keep it running, right? And start building something in parallel. Uh, and at the same time, maybe also start introducing kind of new ideas inside the company, like, hey, just sowing the seeds, uh, mentioning something here, mentioning something there, to kind of create a certain familiarity internally about other ways of doing things. And at the same time, while you still keep doing things in parallel, when they start bringing results, it really depends on the business model. But,
Hmm.
this is a very SaaS specific problem. So in a SaaS kind of environment, because you can track revenue back to, all along the way, usually when you have a deal going on, when you have uh, deals closed, you can always track them down and really try to understand the source, and then use
Mm-hmm.
that data
Mm.
to kind of support, because you already have something going on in terms of demand gen, and you still keep running the standard lead gen, and you can use this data to support uh, the new way of doing things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I know it's pretty sensitive, the question of changing things. People are very sensitive because they're conservative.
Yes.
So maybe, don't change until you get something going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That does make a lot of sense. You're not going to convert everyone within the company overnight.
No, no, no. And maybe not even overnight. So
Yeah.
it's very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very practical approach. As we look forward to a new year, Mikhail, marketers have to think about demand capture. So for people who are audience members who are in a buying cycle, you definitely want to have programs to let them know about your product and get them interested. But for the demand creation aspect, the people who are the right audience, however, they're not yet in a buying cycle, what are 5 things that you may want to include in your 2023 marketing plans?
Okay, so maybe not five, maybe
Mm.
fewer.
I
Uh,
like it.
so when I think about, and maybe it's not even demand gen specific,
Mm.
but what I really like to consider, and it's pretty obvious, but at the same time, I I know I see that people don't always think about this proactively. But
Hmm.
what is really important for me is, first is that uh, you need to know where your audience is. Like, you have to be pretty certain. You have to really know the places where they go, where they hang out, um, versus just going to places where usually, you see other marketers going. So really try to figure out where your audience is. The other part is to figure out the message for your audience. Is like, okay, you have a product. What would really make people from your audience to stop and consider, like, why would they need to spend time considering your product? Like, what's this about? Like, you need to figure out the message that would really make them curious, and would really make them want to spend their time to consider your product in any way, right? So these are the details, right? How. And for me, like, getting that message, and because you know where your audience is, just go to these places and don't really think about attribution or whatever, because you know your audience is there, and you know this message works really well for your audience, and you just continuously show your message to your audience better more than one place, to kind of take this multi-channel approach to really, make them memorize you, which happens faster and so stronger when they see you in more than one channel. So it's really not demand gen, but it's kind of is, right? It's because you kind of reinforcing your message to the people you know that are your potential buyers.
Right.
And how you do that, it could be content, it could be advertising, it could be influencers, it could be the combination of all of these, something else, right? So these are the details, you know, that don't really matter that much. It's platform specific, situation specific, product specific. The two most important things is like knowing where your audience is, getting the message right, and the rest of the details.
I love how your mind works, Mikhail, because honestly, a lot of people do think about the specific tactics. And maybe that's more exciting to talk about because those can feel more actionable. Oh, you said LinkedIn? Oh, okay. And, this type of content? Perfect. Got it. And then they're off. A lot of us don't spend time on like the messaging that would resonate with the audience. What will make them stop, make them curious? And then you said, don't worry about attribution. Maybe more marketers support that, but I think within their organizations, at times that can be a tough sell. But I do like how you're thinking about 2023 demand generation. Yeah. Okay. We're going to do one more. Mikhail, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you today. We call this one gotta go. All right. So I'm going to give you 3 items for your business, and you have to get rid of one. All right. You ready?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Okay. So here are 3 items. One gotta go. Marketing ops expertise, performance marketing expertise, customer insight expertise. One gotta go.
Marketing ops.
Oh, marketing ops. I apologize to all my marketing ops professionals.
I mean, you still
What?
can do stuff manually. You can, I mean, a lot of the software that has been around for some time. Yeah, I started in the times before that.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any kind of integrations, automation, almost none of it. But you still need to have like the expertise of like, serving the ads to the correct audience, and you need to know the insights from your customers. This is
Mm-hmm.
non-negotiable. But
Mm-hmm.
I started working in digital marketing many years ago, way before all these operations been in place.
Gotcha.
They, of course, I really like that stuff, but one gotta go.
I like that. All right. Okay, so let me give you another set of three. Here we go. MQL, podcast subscriber, social media follower. One got to go.
Um, Podcast subscriber. It's not a real
Mm,
metric. It doesn't
interesting.
exist.
I
So
mean,
it's easy to let it go. Yeah.
there are people listening to the podcast, but you don't know who they are. They're anonymous.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not like that you don't even know the number. So this metric doesn't exist because the
Mm.
platforms, they don't provide this metric. So it
Mm.
doesn't exist, right? So uh, it's a fictional metric.
All right, you heard it from Mikhail. All right, a couple more. Here we go. Case studies, Mikhail, white papers, and ebooks. One got to go.
Ebooks.
Ebooks.
Yeah.
Ooh. Mikhail
Oh, it's
says the
easy,
ebook
right?
is dead.
No, I don't say that. I don't say anything is dead. But mm, well, case studies, they're still very powerful, even though like boring. People still use them more as a due diligence in their
Mm.
internal processes. Not like
Mm-hmm.
they really like them, but
Mm-hmm.
if they consider a product, they have to use them as a justification internally,
Mm-hmm.
like showing to financial, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an important piece. And like white papers and ebooks are pretty much in the same category, but I would keep wipers because they're shorter.
Mm. Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
That's
All right. Cool. All right. We're going to give you a tough one now. So here's three things. One got to go. Great brand reach. So you're reaching a large percentage of your audience. Great brand recall. So a large percentage of your audience remembers your brand. Great brand resonance. So your brand is relevant to the people that you're reaching. One of those has to go. So you have reach, you have recall, you have resonance.
rich.
Reach? Are you
Yes.
reach, Mikhail?
Yes. Quality over quantity. Because the other two are quality metrics and reach is
Mm.
quantity. Um, if you reach a smaller portion of your audience, but it really resonates, the rest is word of mouth. You don't really, the reach will be, it will be just a continuation of the other two.
All right, Mikhail, you're gonna get some people in trouble sacrificing reach. But
No, reach is crucial, right? But in this case, if you have to focus on, the two, I believe that the other two will do the work. They would
mm,
really create the reach that you need. Reach is important, I mean, of course, but one
yeah,
gotta go, right?
it's true, Mikhail, because in this age of algorithms on social properties on Google, a lot of times you may have good content, resonant content, but at the beginning the algorithm might act as a gatekeeper. And that's very frustrating to a lot of marketers. It sounds like what you're saying, though, is that if you have good resonance, so what the messaging actually, it really hits, then over time, the organic response is going to now allow the algorithm to give you the reach you need.
Well, if we're talking about algorithm, like social media, LinkedIn specifically, it's a very specific case. But in any
Mm,
case, if your audience, if your product resonates with your audience, they're gonna talk about it. That's
mm-hmm.
it.
That makes sense.
But
That
if
makes
if
sense.
you reach everybody, but nobody cares, what's the point?
And that is actually a lot of marketing today. We are going to wrap it up on that point. You've been listening to Mikhail Myzgin, VP of Marketing at Slice, host of Ethics in Marketing. He's done it all from B2B to B2C. Mikhail, who do you like in the World Cup? Who's going to win the World Cup?
Oof, Spain.
Oh, come on. Too easy. Mikhail, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for spending time on the Demand Wars.
Thanks for having me, Valaji. It was really fun.
All right, folks, we'll see you on the next episode of The Demand Wars. Bye for now.